Eric, your organization has done a lot of work over the last few years in criminal justice reform, and really, it's a great success story. It's not something that you would expect from a Republican-dominated legislature, but it's been a great issue of bipartisanship. And as we go around the country, Georgia is perceived as a national leader in criminal justice reform. And in fact, not only we projected it's going to save several $100 million, but I think it was fact-checked just this week or last week that we've already saved about $20 million. Tell us what happened this year and that sort of added to that momentum.
Well, first I'll say, Kelly, your group has been active on the Right on Crime initiative and just as involved in this as we have been. Over the last, 3 years now, the state has made, really tremendous steps forward on essentially keeping folks out of prison that really don't belong there. That's what the first 2 years were largely about. The stat that I heard was that for the first time in state history, really, there are about 10,000 county jail beds left empty this past year. And that's unheard of. The need for reform, and I don't know how much of this you want, Kelly, but the need for reform has been tremendous. We have 56,000 prisoners in jail at any one time in the state. There are about 18 to 20,000 released each year. Most people don't know that. And overall, about 95, 96% are going to get out at some point. The problem, though, is that with that 18 to 20,000 coming out, you have about 30% that are going to go back to prison within 3 years, and 65% overall are going to be rearrested within that same time frame. So re-entry is where our focus, we thought, this year needed to be. We started a working group on prisoner re-entry. The governor's office was also doing work on re-entry. Our group came up with some recommendations and were able to present it to the governor's commission on criminal justice reform. And it eventually made it into law of the session. There were 3 reforms specifically that passed. The first was to give judges more ability to grant driver's license to offenders who have been convicted of drug-related offenses. Now, they have to be drug-related offenses that don't involve driving, which makes a lot of sense, and they can't be related to violent felonies. But what was happening and what we see has been happening is that you have folks coming out with drug charges, which are the lion's share of our prisoners, and they can't get a driver's license. They can't get a driver's license, and in a state like Georgia, where having a car means being able to have a job largely, they were unable to work or unable to get to work consistently, so they couldn't keep jobs, which then drives them into, where most of us would not go, which is back into a life of crime. So that's a great reform. We're glad it was included. Another thing that was done that will help with employment is that the state has created a certification program for recently released offenders. And basically, the requirement is that the state treat reentry very seriously and have a program for these guys coming out to be ready to reenter. And if they are, they get a certificate that they can use with any employer so that the employer has some protection from claims that they negligently hired an offender, in case the offender does something that hurts somebody on the job. So that's a big deal too. If you're an employer, and I'm assuming many of you are, you see somebody with a record and you immediately discount them because you know the type of liability that you're facing if you hire them. This should help a lot. So those are some of the reforms. There are others that we hoped would be included, such as a tax credit for employers willing to hire ex-offenders. And others among those. We'll have some other recommendations coming out for this next session that we hope the state will take a look at. But overall, I think that is a bright spot. I'm glad the state's done what it's done.